This is Michael Popak, Legal AF, reporting on the closing argument by Alina Habba. I put that in air quotes. I've never seen such a thing before. She teetered on the edge of being reprimanded frequently by the judge, shot down by the judge in front of the jury because she veered into material and information and argument that had already been barred and banned from the courtroom by the judge in prior rulings. No surprise there. She almost wanted to be a martyr. She invited it in order to try to look for some jury sympathy that she was being shut down. She kept talking about she has a First Amendment right to speak. No, you don't. You're an officer of the court that needs to comply and abide by rulings of the court. That Donald Trump has a First Amendment right. He doesn't have a First Amendment right to give his opinion about facts that have already been established by a judge and a jury. To bring people up to speed, E. Jean Carroll was raped by Donald Trump. So says a federal jury, and so says a federal judge. Those were not issues in dispute and should never have been argued in dispute by Alina Habba at all. That he defamed her is not in dispute. That's been adjudged by a jury previously and by a judge this time around. The only issue is how big of a check the jury is going to award E. Jean Carroll for punitive damages. And at the rate, as I did in a prior hot take, at the rate that Donald Trump is acting out in front of the jury and saying things under his breath that the judge has to reprimand, and then gets up in the middle of a female attorney's presentation of her closing argument about a female rape victim in front of a jury. I mean, this jury verdict is going to come fast today. After everybody's done talking and the jury gets their lunch and gets instructed and deliberates, I don't know if it's going to be as quick as 3 hours, which was the jury in May against Donald Trump in favor of E. Jean Carroll, but it's going to be a very short work for this jury based on the conduct here. Alina Habba, major argument was that E. Jean Carroll craves her own fame that she got from being raped. I'm going to leave that right there just for a minute, a moment of silence on that argument raised by Alina Habba in front of a jury. She argued, in effect, that she asked for it, she got raped, and as a result, she has more Twitter followers than she had before. And she should be thankful. This is another way of putting it, and I'm sure the jury will latch onto that when they get into their room privately to deliberate. Did that woman just argue that the rape victim, who we have to assume was raped, not only asked for it, but she wanted it because she wanted to profit from it to increase her social media followers? Did I just hear that in a court of law? I'm hoping the jury foreperson leads the jury through that kind of discussion, because that is in effect Alina Habba's closing argument. She also argued without any evidence whatsoever, and was objected to numerous times, that there was evidence that was counter to E. Jean Carroll's position, some tweets about death threats that got deleted. There's no evidence of that in the trial. And of course, in the rebuttal close, the lawyer for E. Jean Carroll will point that out to the jury. She got reprimanded so many times by the trial judge. The trial judge says, get off this topic that you're on about Donald Trump told the truth about the fact that he didn't rape her, because that has already been adjudged against Donald Trump. And if she continued to do it, she was threatened in front of the jury with sanctions. And then she looked at the jury and said, see, they won't let me talk either, as if that's going to curry some favor with the jury. Their other argument, which is bizarre, is that E. Jean Carroll went to the media before Donald Trump even commented about her, and therefore she brought on herself any of this public condemnation from the MAGA followers. There's no evidence of that whatsoever. Zero. Then Alina Habba also violated certain cardinal rules of being a trial lawyer. You can't vouch for the veracity of your witness. You can't say, I know Donald Trump and he only tells the truth. That a lawyer can't do, even in closing argument. But she did it. She said he told the truth, and I know he told the truth. Wrong. Disregard that, jury. Everything that Ms. Habba just said, disregard that. And I will tell you from doing jury work for a long, long time, juries sense when they're being had and when they're being taken advantage of, and when somebody's not being truthful in front of them. And that is everything about Alina Habba's closing. So that was that. Then she decided to interject her own again, this is completely, it would be reversible error if the judge didn't admonish the jury about this. It could be a mistrial if you wanted a mistrial, is when she said out loud, Alina Habba said that Alina Habba, has received death threats just this week. All right? Wrong. You're not allowed to bring new evidence in or to testify as if you were a witness in the case as a fact witness when you're a lawyer. So that one, the judge says, you know what, I'll deal with that with instructions properly to the jury. And I'm sure the instruction is going to be along the lines of closing argument is argument and opinions of lawyers. It's not evidence. So he's trying to find ways not to have this mistrial happen and to have this case get to a jury and let them deliberate and make their rulings. The other arguments here, Alina Habba made to the jury, she looked them in the eye and said, you're not here to pay Ms. Carroll for people who wrote mean tweets to her. No, they have to prove a direct causal connection to his statements denying that he knew her and raped her and all of that to the attacks on her. I'm not sure that is the measure under the law, and the judge will remind the jury that he gives the law in the case. He's the lawgiver, not the judges. Not the lawyers. She goes on to say in front of the jury that this is the beauty and danger of free speech in America. Look at the balls for Donald Trump's lawyers to be talking about free speech in America. Before and after President Trump's statements, both of these statements, Ms. Carroll did it to promote her book. And then she points to Carol Martin, a friend of E. Jean Carroll, who said that, she was a little bit upset that E. Jean Carroll was acting like Santa in the Christmas parade about the issues. Look, E. Jean Carroll is dealing with her own personal truth about the rape that happened to her in her own way. And we're not here to comment on how she tries to reclaim her dignity and how many talk shows she goes on to say that man raped her. That is something that should be credited as a heroine, not the opposite. And to hear Alina Habba attack another woman in court who's a rape victim as a judge. I mean, she even got into it, Alina Habba, with the judge about her rape victim status. I'm sure that pissed off the jury, and women on the jury as well, when she said, well, that was a jury approved the rape. Right. A jury proved the rape, Ms. Habba. Move on. You're not here to argue that that didn't happen because the court has already given the instruction to the jury that the rape did happen. So move on. In fact, when she went on to talk about other evidence in the case, she said, again, blaming the victim, E. Jean Carroll didn't call the police. She hung the pants. She didn't tell anybody, but she hung the pants. I have to translate for somebody who's barely conversant in English. It's almost like English is a second language with Alina Habba, or at least legal languages. Hung the pants. There's already been testimony in the prior case, for instance, that E. Jean Carroll kept the coat dress that she wore when she was attacked by Donald Trump. Okay, so she hung the coat dress. She didn't call the police. Again, we're attacking the rape victim for how she didn't fight back, act out, didn't scream, or anything else. In a case where she's already been found to be a rape victim, I think this is a losing proposition for Alina Habba, and the jury will make her pay for that. She then tried to make E. Jean Carroll out to be not credible by saying she freely walked around the streets of New York and in Midtown, and she wore a fake orange jumpsuit. No, I think the jumpsuit was real, actually, Alina. And with a fake Donald Trump to promote her book. Okay. I mean, she is the victim. If she wants to find a way to make lemonade out of lemons, that's up to her. She then looked at the jury, Alina Habba, and said, there are two versions of E. Jean Carroll. There are the one her friend told you about, that's Carol Martin, and the one who comes to court to get money from my client. Ladies and gentlemen, you heard him testify that he didn't intend to hurt her. That's the best defense he's got. The 3 minutes of testimony, that's it, by Donald Trump, in which he said he stood by his deposition transcript, in which he said he thought E. Jean Carroll was his wife, Marla Maples, and that he didn't intend to hurt her. How did he not intend to hurt her? He didn't even know, according to him, he didn't know who she was. And then Habba said, this is where the vouching for a witness gets you into trouble with a judge. She then told the jury, all Trump did was tell you the truth. And Roberta Kaplan properly objected, and the judge says, I'll deal with that in my instruction. And then Habba said, my feelings would be hurt too. I guess she's again siding with Donald Trump, her client, in front of the jury, but it happens when you're a public figure. Just ask E. Jean. She said she was fabulous. She said she was carefree. She expressed this privately to one of her friends, Lisa Birnbach, that she was fine, that she slept until noon after it happened. Look, there's already been testimony in a case that tried the case of whether she was raped, that she, after repeating it at night to her two friends, Carol Martin and Lisa Birnbach, that she realized she had been raped, that she was under a psychosis from being attacked. Has nothing to do with this trial and should not have been introduced into evidence. And then she wanted to try to embarrass E. Jean Carroll by throwing up some tweets in which E. Jean Carroll, again trying to reclaim her dignity, talked about men and penises and what should happen to them. That objection was sustained, and Judge Kaplan instructed the jury as well. She actually said, and here's the part where I think if she hadn't lost the jury in the beginning, she hadn't lost the jury a week ago, she lost the jury here, in my opinion. She said, she's enjoying this. E. Jean Carroll, who broke down in tears on the stand again about the attacks on her and what happened to her, she actually had the balls, the temerity to look the jury in the eye and said, the rape victim is enjoying this. Again, I'm going to leave it to the whoever the foreperson is of that jury to remind the jury of that statement and make them pay for it in punitive damages, because that's the reason they're here. Rape victim enjoyed it, is enjoying the fame and the notoriety that comes from death threats and other terrible things brought against her by MAGA. Okay. She's enjoying this. She's making more money today than she was in June of 2019. See, if you get raped by a guy who ultimately becomes president of the United States, you should sit back and enjoy it because you're going to make more money and have more social media followers. I'm going to let that land on a moment of silence as well. Okay. She had hit rock bottom, financial rock bottom, Alina Habba continuing in her closing. Elle magazine cut her salary. No more dinner at, then she quoted some restaurant that nobody remembers in New York called Elaine's. Just a cottage in the woods like in Montana. She's been writing a book for years. She sat in that cabin far from the glamour of New York, right? She did an interview. She got publicists. She lunched with journalists. Her best friend said she was Santa in the Christmas parade. Do you think she wants, this is what Habba told the jury, do you think she wants to go back to that cabin with her 12,000 Twitter followers? No, Alina, your client, you're right. You finally unmasked it. E. Jean Carroll wanted to be raped by Donald Trump because one day he'd be president and she'd have a bigger following on social media and she'd make more money and be able to leave that cabin in Montana that she's been in because of what happened to her because your client raped her. Then they try to attack Ms. Humphreys, the expert, who put on a testimony that the amount of damages that should be awarded are at least a floor of $16 million. She said they picked an expert, Ms. Humphreys. By the way, the same expert that was used successfully by E. Jean Carroll in the first trial back in May, where the jury awarded her $5 million, and the same expert that was used by Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss against Rudy Giuliani in the DC fraud case, DC defamation case, and they awarded them based on the expert's testimony, $148 million. So here she's going after Ms. Humphreys in her closing. Her report was riddled with mistakes. She can't find 17 errors that we found. Roberta Kaplan, objection. Judge Kaplan, sustained. Your Honor, sustained. She said Republicans were more likely not to believe Ms. Carroll than non-Republicans. And then Alina Habba looked at the jury and went, duh. I'm not making this up. Thank you, Ms. Humphreys. You need an expert to make that point? People are entitled to their opinions. And then she ends with, imagine you're living your life. You have a family. Now she's talking about Donald Trump. A beautiful wife. I guess that's Melania. An important job to do. I don't know, president? You're hit with allegations. There are no facts. Objection sustained. She doesn't even know what I was saying. Alina Habba was like, she doesn't even know what I'm saying. Judge said, move on to another topic. Habba said, under the First Amendment, you have a right to speak. Objection sustained. You've heard the objection, she turned to the jury, Alina Habba. You've heard me being told to sit down. Objection, judge, move on. This is not a good look, by the way, in front of a jury for a defense lawyer. Talk about duh. let me just state the obvious as a defense lawyer. And she ended it with, this is about tweeters. Is that what they're called? Tweeters? Tweeters in their mother's basement. Miss Carroll has been made whole, talking about the money that she got in the first trial, which was not supposed to be mentioned. Roberta Kaplan said objection. Judge Kaplan says sustained. And then she ended with, ladies and gentlemen, sorry you had to spend so much time on this. Wow. Wow. This will now be packaged, if we ever get a video of it, which we don't have, this will be packaged and taught in law schools and trial practice on exactly what not to do when you're a defense lawyer. I mean, I've read a lot of these books. I've contributed to a number of these books. This is what you don't do. Okay, this is what I will teach my trial lawyers. You want to know what not to do in a defense case? Alina Habba's entire closing argument. In front of a jury, in which she was reprimanded, told to stop, told to sit down. And I got to tell you, I've objected twice my entire career during somebody else's closing argument or opening statement. Twice. You don't do it unless you have to. But you see, she was left with no choice because all that Alina Habba wanted to do was be a martyr. Now, Donald Trump did sit through all of his lawyers' closing, although he got up, after the first 10 minutes of the closing argument by Roberta Kaplan on behalf of E. Jean Carroll. Now, this is today. This is Friday. Closing arguments are done. Jury instruction, jury lunch, as I like to comment. They like to get their lunch. And then they're going to meet by themselves in a room, all 9 of them. The alternate jurors are going to be told they're alternate jurors, sent on their way, given a certificate, and thank them for their patriotic duty. The 9 are going to go into that room. They're going to deliberate. Are they going to beat the record of 3 hours from the trial jury from May against Donald Trump, or are they going to take longer? If they get this case, they could go till 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock. After that, the judge is probably going to say, do you want to come back on Monday? And then it's up to the jury to decide whether, no, we're close, judge, let us finish. And we'll go later tonight. We'll report out on a MeidasTouch on Legal AF. Or they're going to say, judge, we need more time. We want to come back Monday morning and finish. We'll see. We'll report on it right here. Legal AF, MeidasTouch Network. Don't change that dial. Follow us on Wednesdays and Saturdays for our full 1-hour podcast we like to call Legal AF, the podcast. It's exactly what you think. Join me Wednesdays and Saturdays with Karen Freeman Agnifilo and then Ben Meiselas. And then on hot takes like this one, only one place in the MeidasTouch Network. So until my next hot take, until my next Legal AF, this is Michael Popak reporting.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Meidas by signing up to the MeidasTouch newsletter at MeidasTouch.com/newsletter.